19 years old is Vincent Keimer. He's assured of at minimum a $10,000 payday. So Vincent, the best of his chess is ahead of him, but he needs to bring his best today if he's going to take down the wily veteran Levon Aronian. Well, speaking of wily veterans, David, it's Alexander Grishuk.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I love Grishuk, just his style, his charisma. He does tend to get in time trouble over the board. That could be a bit of a hindrance for him today, but something that I think a lot of our viewers will empathize with. Grishuk, he understands chess so much better than most players. I can't wait to follow those games, Robert. I just saw him out the corner of my eye on the camera as well. Just showing his age with some tech issues there, but we'll be back with the players very, very shortly.
That was quite amusing. I'm glad that we didn't expose that to the world, but yeah, he was definitely pointing to his phone, maybe doing some fair play checks. That was funny. So the games will begin in just a couple of minutes now. David, I guess I have to put you on the spot. It's just the two of us. What do you expect in these matches? Do you think that the players who are coming from the winner's bracket and thus have 2 lives, do you think they'll just keep on sailing and win their titles? Or do you think Levon or Grishuk, who have come back from the dead, from the loser's bracket, do you think they can land 2 match victories in a row?
That's a tough call, Robert. Yesterday, I backed experience. I backed Jan Nepomniachtchi to triumph over a couple of youngsters. That was not the case in the end. It was youth that prevailed. Today, this clash of generations, it's the younger player in both Division 2 and 3 who have those extra lives. So even if they're pegged back and kind of lose that first match, maybe that extra energy from being a bit younger will help if it does end up being a marathon. So I do feel Vincent Keimer today, big favourite. I think Alexei Sarana, a bit of a favourite there. I've learned from yesterday, Robert, with my prediction. Always back these youngsters, this new guard. How about yourself? What are you expecting?
It's hard to bet against Vincent Keimer under any circumstances, but when he has 2 lives to Levon Aronian's 1, I do think that Levon has serious chances. He has the style to get under people's skin. Like, he just plays very quickly. He plays confidently. He takes risks, and you tend to believe him because he is one of the highest rated players in chess history. So for Levon Aronian and Vincent Keimer, I actually think that this one, it really depends on who gets that first game. If Levon wins game 1, I think Vincent could be in trouble, even though he has those 2 lives.
There's a lot going on in Vincent Keimer's room right now. I can see the clock in the top left corner. The countdown has begun, about to start any moment. Is the writing on the wall? I mean, that's some funky wallpaper, but Vincent ready to go. And Levon too, he's back in his chair. We're going to see liftoff any moment now. And looks like Vincent will start with the white pieces, Robert. He'll be eager for a fast start in this one.
He certainly will. You do not want to lose with the white pieces. Start giving your opponent that confidence boost. And we have D4. Action is underway here in Division 2 of the Chessable Masters. And by the way, I like that artwork behind Levon. Is he the king? Is he trying to say that he also is a painting? He is going to at least do art on the chessboard, David.
He's a bit of an artist when he gets in the flow. Let's hope for Levon's sake the Black King isn't the one toppling over on the board at least, but in the meantime it's the Grunfeld defense, and actually a rare guest in Aronian's repertoire, not his usual stuff. And wow, look at this maximum central tension already. I've been playing this opening my entire career, my entire life, but this is a rare position, I've got to say. Just on this last move, Black initiating the chaos. Look at that Black bishop, the assassin, the archer from afar. And already the fact that Vincent's paused is not a good sign for White. If he wants to kind of bail out, he'll start taking pawns in the center. You shouldn't take the c-pawn. As you mentioned, there's tension along the diagonal. Take this pawn instead, and this will guarantee a bunch of exchanges. And we'll see the kind of the skeleton of the Grunfeld form in a moment. White has more central pawns. Black has activity and will aim to erode, chip away at White's center from afar. So interesting mind games for me, Robert. I haven't been following Levon too closely in this event, but definitely not kind of his normal repertoire. A bit of a surprise for Vincent at these early stages.
And that's what Levon has shown a willingness to do. He doesn't just play in one style, in one opening. He is venturing into new territory, and that makes it difficult to pin him down, to prepare for. And this queen on d5, normally we don't like our queens out in the center of the board because they get kicked by pieces, but look at what Levon is doing. He's actually trading the queens, liquidating. So, David, we're getting the start of a Grunfeld ending here. I believe king takes queen. You can use your king as a weapon in the endgame, so you don't have to castle it. But what do you make of these types of positions? Are they more up Vincent or Levon's alley?
I would say Vincent, despite his tender years, he's really, really good in strategic positions. Shout out to Peter Lecco as well, his longtime coach, who's given this kind of solid foundation to Vincent's play, who's kind of taught him how to kind of maximize, how to grind in these types of endgames. And Levon, you would associate him with more active play potentially, Robert. So with the queens off the board, unlikely to be any direct tactics, minimal attacks, despite the white king sitting in the center. I think now Vincent will activate that white rook. There we go. The reason for viewers at home that he took with the king was to connect his rooks, get that white rook out of h1 as quickly as possible. Now the white king might just slide back, and at least he's kind of castled. But yes, a superficial castle, but his king's actually far better placed than it would be off in the corner. You don't need to keep the king too safe. You're really active. As I mentioned earlier, I've got a lot of experience here, mostly from the black side, and it's not that much fun compared to a normal Grunfeld. I think Vincent's trying to suck the joy out, not for us. We're going to enjoy it nonetheless, Robert, but for Levon Aronian.
Well, Levon, white king, so it's clear he d4 pawn is pinned. And David, I know you've got experience on the black side, and when you play these top grandmasters, they don't miss simple ideas like that. But what they do accomplish is they take control over open files and restrict your pieces. This situation on the queen side is one where white already has the can take control over long open files. With you that it isn't pleasant to have this type of position from the black side if your opponent knows what he's doing. Does Vincent, David?
That's the big question. He's paused, and a bit of an odd moment to pause because, as you mentioned, Robert, a huge threat on the board. Pawn to e5. It might not necessarily open black's position open, and the white king will start position. Either you slide back with the white king, just kind of automatic, the autopilot move, or you put the white rook on c5, position it on a slightly vulnerable square, but just to control black's potential counterplay. You mentioned knowing what you're doing. Often the top players, they'll be able to feel out the position, the structure they want, the pieces they want to keep on the board or exchange. But odd, slightly odd at least, to see Vincent think for so long, already over 2 minutes down on the clock. And it's still basically the early stages. He was the one who chose this variation. There we go. One of the moves happens. Rook to c5. Very logical move, but slightly slower start. Do you think the nerves are playing a role here, or just trying to find his bearings?
I think there are nerves because he's got a chance to qualify for the top division, and he's playing Levon Aronian, who is a trickster, who doesn't mind bluffing. And you ask all of the top players about Levon, they say they can't always tell when he's deep in preparation or just playing off the cuff. And it's just because he has so much experience and he's beaten all of the best players on the planet. Look up his head-to-head with Magnus Carlsen in classical chess. He's taken him down so many times in his career. So Levon, is he in his preparation? Is he just rolling with the punches as the moves happen? I do think he's in prep, David. I have to say this looks like a standard position from the black side. And once again, he is trying to open up ideas with e5 by moving his bishop to g4, and also he's connected his rook. So I like what Levon's doing. No problems with what Vincent has done. But David, the clock, that is where I feel concerned for Vincent, is at some point he will need to speed up.
Need to speed up, and he will need to stay vigilant on this move because there are some tactics in the air. If white were to be careless and play a move like h3, kind of asking a question of black's light square bishop, then black would just trade off on f3 and look at the white rooks. They're actually lined up on dark squares. Knight takes d4 here, I think, would be a killer. At least giving black a big advantage. And now bishop takes d4. Both the white rooks are forked, double attacked. and Levon Aronian would suddenly win on the spot. So Vincent needs to get one of his rooks to a safer square. This is what to avoid. And once you know what to avoid, it makes it easier to figure out what you want to do. Instead, he puts his rook on c1. So that tactic doesn't work. Black can potentially get a rook for 2 pieces, but you want to keep your minor pieces on the board right now. And Levon Aronian, I'm going to say, Robert, because he doesn't he doesn't throw out the Grunfeld too often, I do fear for him unless he's able to get something concrete. If White's able to keep this bind, the strong pawn on d4, then I think Black might be suffering long term. So yeah, kind of pros and cons. Black's very, very active, but you need to continue to be energetic in this type of position, and not easy to do. Just kind of taking your foot off the pedal, off the gas, and you could just be in for a lot of torture later on. I'm going to say I'm favouring White here slightly, Robert. How about you?
I agree, and I think you're speaking from experience. Having the black side of the Grunfeld in this endgame, it is favorable for White, who has the activity, but Black, in the long run, has outside pawns that potentially you can use to your advantage. So while Levon sits in for his first major think of the game, why don't we zoom out? Because we also have the grand final in Division 3. Alexei Sarana versus Alexander Grushuk. You see that on the right-hand side of the screen. And what a different type of position we have there. Apparently, Grishuk is just crushing him.
Wow, what has happened on that board? Look at the evaluation bar on the right side of your screens, everyone. White is apparently just winning despite the fact it's level material, and it's purely because of the passivity of Black's pieces. Look at the Black queen on the kind of left flank on b8 there, so far separated from her king. That's always a red flag in any chess position. If your queen's that far away, she'll never participate in the defense, and you might just get checkmated. Grishuk turning on the style. I've got to say, Robert, as well, just below the board, I see his rapid rating. That is so deceptive. Alexander Grishuk is a 27-2800 player. He's not a 26-48 at rapid, no matter what. And yeah, he's just got a clear-cut plan. White's going to throw the f-pawn forward. White is going to go for Sarana's king. And yeah, dramatic start to Division 3 over there. I mean, it's just a glorious position right now for White. Sarana blocks up that pawn push that I was mentioning, Robert, but the problems are long-term here.
And White hasn't sacrificed anything. Normally, to get a position like this, you might even give up a whole piece, just to go on the attack. But here, the material is even. The Black queen on b8, the Black rook on a8, they're not participating. And you like to say when the king and queen are divorced, that can cause problems. The queen needs to be on a square like f7 to help ensure the king's safety. So what would I do here if I were Grishuk? I'd be looking at a rook lift. I'm not even sure which rook. Rook c3 over to the king side, rook f3, just scooted on over to g3 or h3. I feel like some of these moves are extremely natural, but I know from experience, David, that sometimes you play the obvious move and the engine immediately criticizes you. So I would be looking at queen h5, a rook lift, but perhaps there's something better. Do you see anything that is less brute force than a move like queen to h5 and a rook lift?
Question, Robert. And I think here, if I were Grishuk, I would be facing the exact same dilemma. Look at him kind of shaking his head on the camera, kind of counting, calculating. He's spending too much time because there are too many attractive moves. You mentioned a bunch of them. Queen h5 looks so tempting. Rook to f3, I like maybe a bit more than rook c3, because then you can kind of switch to the queen side, king side, depending on where your opponent starts playing. Yeah, but essentially you just have to trust your instincts and move. Grishuk, the one thing that did trip him up, I feel, from the kind of first match against Sarana, when I played through those games, it was the clock. It was his time handling. And Sarana, he's not going to be shy about hustling on time if he needs to. Black's position is so desperately bad. But Grishuk, he's got too many choices. He's not going to calculate a checkmate here. I think we were both trying to work out whether there's anything direct. Grishuk, look at him talking to himself now. He's thinking the same, but he's just going to move. He's still going to be better. Like you said, the eval bar might switch, but who cares? You just have to keep time up your sleeve for later. As the featured chat say, it is dominance, this position, but that will change if the clock keeps under 4 minutes now. This is the story of Grishuk's career.
It really is. And if you give Black a few turns, rook f7, knight f8, get this bishop out of here. It's not like it's a complicated plan from Black's perspective, and that's why I think to act fast. And by Grishuk's face right now. He's a poker player, but I don't yet to move David. He has conducted attack from here. It's not
as well. Time issues, spidey senses are tingling. You know in the back of your mind you're winning. And it's frustrating if your opponent kind of sets up defenses like this and there's no obvious breakthrough. But that's where the top players, the Magnus Carlsens, the Hikaru Nakamuras of the world, they just trust their instincts. They just set a trap. Eventually he decides upon knight to a5, wow. Robert, and multi-purpose move that actually not on my radar, but I love it.
I think that was the best move. I'm going to quickly look. I'm going to go back a half step and put on the move. That was the best move by far. Knight a5. So Alexander Grishuk, he spends quite a lot of time and move that you admitted, I wasn't looking in that direction. I'm looking at the king side. He says my knight isn't on its best square. It can hop back to c4 to ask questions of this bishop on d6. It also freezes this b pawn. You definitely don't want to see this knight land on c6 to hit this queen on b8. And the move rook f7 played by Serrana, that's a pretty natural choice. But I think that this knight, David, can wrap around to c4, or maybe he's just going to keep it here forever and say, black is stuck. You don't actually have an active plan.
And I think, again, this is great for explaining to everyone who isn't familiar with Grishuk his style. He's a perfectionist, and that's a very good thing in chess, but it's a kind of double-edged blade. Perfectionism in rapid chess can backfire long term, and there we see queen to g4. He's playing on both flanks. I like it, Robert. I would have also liked the consistent kind of knight c4. It felt like he was playing on that side of the board, but he's looking at both flanks. He's keeping black honest and already traps. The black knight is frozen, cannot move because the white knight would leap into b6. This is almost Zugzwang, I've got to say. Black can barely touch a single pawn, a single piece, but it's all about the clock. Grishuk, can he hold his nerves? Pawn to b6. Look at Serrana on the camera. He's walked into another knight fork. Knight d8 just wins the game on the spot.
Will Grishuk see it? Oh my gosh, David, I love this game. This is a knight's dance. And he repeats, this is that old school Russian training that if you can repeat, you have to do it. And then only afterwards will he take this rook. But if he doesn't take this rook and finds whatever better move exists in the position, I'm done. I won't be able to talk anymore. I'll be speechless.
That would be sadistic, not even snacking on a free exchange here, free material. He does eventually take, and a good decision to play that move quickly. But so classy, just so classy, Robert. When it all comes together for Grishuk, I mean, there's no one better to watch, simply. White now has moves like queen to h5 check. You either win the h7 pawn or you sneak in behind enemy lines to the e8 square. Rook lifts still look really tempting right now. I mean, rook to f3, rook to g3. There's something is going to collapse. He does deliver a check first, but Serrana, you can see it on the camera. He's trying to keep his poker face this time, but the occasional flinch, he's not enjoying this at all. He knows he's just been outclassed in this game, and we have a real match in our hands in this one if Grishuk takes the first win.
Serrana won all 3 games between these two in the winners' final. It was a 3-0 sweep, and now it looks like Grishuk has a chance to get out to a hot start, but he does need to watch his time. We spoil winning positions regularly when we don't have enough time to calculate. I am keeping an eye on the other board, and I am also keeping an eye on this rook on f3, sliding over. David, at this stage, I do think that Grishuk has everything under control. The rook is coming over for the attack, and it's just a matter of time before the black king side falls apart.
Feels like it's getting closer, but they do say that good positions. Expecting Serrana to move the black light. I'm sure there is something in the with 1 minute who has to. What else? Black is. Serrana will move his light square bishop. 7 and there's no mate, they say, but this might be the exception, Robert.
This looks like there will be a mating attack. And while Grishuk is on the offensive, I just want to note that the other game, it's about to fizzle out. So as we head back to our bird's eye view, we actually might catch the end of the first game in Division 2. Vincent Keimer and Levon Aronian. They had bishops of opposite color. Well, Vincent, he just left. I don't know. His clock is still ticking until the draw is agreed, as it has been. So game 1 in the books, David. A very fair result. Looks like Levon handled himself quite nicely.
Levon, we were saying his position was slightly uncomfortable. He needed to be energetic, but he did find the energy in the end, and he was able to trade off a bunch of pieces. Opposite color bishops do have that drawish tendency. Probably the most drawish final position you'll ever see. But yeah, it will be a close match, of course, in Division 2. All eyes on this one, Robert. And I think I found the checkmate. If Black does retreat, knight back to f8, White can actually take on f6, blow open the Black king, and start entering on the g file. Rook to g3, check will come. The queen will come into f7. Serrano might just throw in the towel and resign here. No way to defend. It is collapsing. Grishuk has found the incisive path to victory.
And it's a lovely one. h6. Well, this is clear. Demolition time. Just bishop takes h6. You get rid of all of the shields in front of the Black's king. That's pretty basic. And then for Black, knight f6. I think knight takes f6 check. Not nearly as obvious, but sacrificing a knight to get at the Black king. It's just a quick attack. And David, I mean, you're calling it. It looks like Grishuk had everything under control from start to finish in this game. And that knight maneuver. And look at Serrano giving up h7 with check, just hoping that Grishuk will go wrong somewhere. That knight maneuver, knight a5, I'm still so impressed by that decision from Grishuk.
We were questioning it. We thought he was kind of playing it fast and loose with the clock. A bit risky there, but ultimately he invested 2 or 3 minutes, Grishuk. And that knight maneuver, knight a5, knight c6, knight d8, it was the winning idea. And look at this. He's still showing accuracy, giving all the checks. Now, actually, rook to h7 might lead to checkmate. A very well-known pattern there. Rook to h7, followed by queen to h5, and delivering the killer blow. Or you can just take the bishop if you don't want to risk it, Grishuk. Again, perfectionism, Robert. It's costing him a lot of time, but it's going to win him the game.
We see off to the left of the board, it does say m5, checkmate in 5, and Grishuk finds it. I mean, you see the accuracy right next to his name there. It says nearly 95%. I don't know where that 5% went away from him, because it seems like every single turn that we saw was the absolute best move. And even and deliver checkmate this way. Playing like this, I mean this. He takes game 1.
With his he needs to recover. That was really one-sided, that first game. Of course, he has 2 lives, but Grishuk, Robert, he's going to be a hard man to stop in that form. Such a good start for him. So great to see. And yeah, I'm going to say he's my favorite player for a reason.
He's unbelievable. When he is in form, when he's not getting himself too low in the clock, Alexander Grishuk, he seems unstoppable. He leads 1-0 in Division 3, and in Division 2, between Levon Aronian and the teenager Vincent Keimer, we saw a peaceful result. David, 2 extraordinarily different games.
Totally different in style, in character there. Vincent tried to trade off pieces, grind down, tried to obtain a small advantage, but he was neutralized in the end quite impressively by Levon Aronian. The other game, though, it was just really romantic chess. It was reminiscent of 19th century chess, just an attack, brutal checkmate in the end. And yeah, I'm hoping for more of the same. Often, Robert, before they start is an indicator of how hard to kind of will come to life at some point. Vincent Keimer and Levon, not to start throwing things at each other this day.
Well, we have seen Alexei Serrana in Division One a year ago in the 2023 Champions Chess Tour. He had some major upsets, and he beat Alireza Firouzja in a match. He was quite powerful when he did make it into the top division. So Serrano, he's a familiar name, as you said, European champion in classical chess, also in the quicker type controls. He, I think, won the European Team Championship. So he had a great 2023 as his rating has risen to near 2,700. But the players that we have here in Vincent Keimer and Levon Aronian, well over 2,700. Vincent recently, I think he went to the top 20 players in the world, and Levon Aronian, the fourth highest rated player in chess history. So these two are really stalwarts of the game. And David, as we get into this second game of the match, there's opening stages here. Whose chances in the match do you like?
Finely balanced right now. They're playing my favorite opening and my favorite type of food, Robert, the Italian. And right now, yeah, interesting to see Levon Aronian kind of employ this opening. I remember a few years back, as recently as 2019 or so, he was not known as an e4 player, but now dabbling in these types of setups with white. He's an expert, of course, from the black side. And yeah, interesting to see this type of position arise. We saw Firouzja employ something very similar yesterday with success against Denis Lazovic. And yeah, it will take a small kind of pause here with a quiet maneuvering phase. There won't be any fireworks yet, but I quite like the fact that Levon is kind of playing calmly here. Of course, we all know he can change the pace at a moment's notice. He's so good at jumping on an opportunity to kind of be dynamic. But right now, yeah, another quieter start to this game. How about yourself? Whose chances do you favour after this opening?
And I know you like the opening because that everyone you said criticized you because he's playing it himself. Type of position, I think usually you know exactly where your pieces belong. Squares like F5 and black. Impatience. This is a main idea. And a knight staring at E5 in the center in these types of.
Yeah, you're right, Robert. And already just pure maneuvering, but get greedy here and grab a pawn. Some of the view read is good. Take on D5, but after everything is traded off, after knight takes pawn here, after if white takes on E5, this is a very well-known trick. And again, pattern recognition for those who are familiar with the Italian game. Bishop takes F2, check would regain the material because white cannot take back with the king. Simply loose pieces drop off, double attack, queen to F6, check. So Levon Aronian, he was calculating this variation. He didn't like it. Yes, white could have dodged with the king to H1, but then your king is always a bit airy, a bit open. So he chooses something else instead. And wow, a really ambitious move in the game from Levon Aronian, bishop to D2. This is based on the fact you're not going to trade queens now on the D file. It's very cagey though, just maximum tension. Robert, Levon trying to embrace the moment and just throwing the move back to his opponent.
He is agent of chaos, Levon Aronian. He does not mind spicing things up. He likes those kind of combative positions. And as you said, most importantly, he's keeping the queens on the board. One of the threats, and I'm saying that word lightly, was to have trade pawns on E4 and then trade queens off next. That is unavailable because there is a bishop in the path of the black queen. So I like this decision. You could also slide your queen on over to C1 at some moment because, David, we know how dangerous sacrifices can be on this H6 square. And Vincent keeps thinking. So I once again like how the opening has gone for Levon.
The clock time is a big giveaway here that Vincent isn't entirely comfortable and at least less familiar with this type of position than Levon Aronian. He does play rook to E8, very healthy move. I'm now expecting Levon to kind of keep that tension, queen to E2, queen to C1, just kind of cagey moves. And okay, first knight to G3, of course, another natural one. It's very hard, these positions, again, from my experience with both colours. With black, you never know when to trade, when to push forward in the centre, where to place your pieces. With white, there's lots of obvious kind of improving moves. It's black with the choice. Black with the pressure on. But now objectively balanced, at least, Robert.
I just like the knight on g3. And a note to everybody at home, if you play the black side of these positions, the bishop on e6 is actually super important to stop a white knight from getting into f5, because we like to say a knife on f5. It can be a dagger against the black king. So be really, really careful before trading off too many pieces. And wow, look at this move, David. d4. Is that impatience, or do you think that this type of move is Vincent trying to claim some advantages of his own?
I think a bit of both there. It is impatient because you could have just continued building up, maybe moved the black queen, brought the black rook in the corner to the center first before deciding. But it's also extremely ambitious. He's taking over the space, gaining ground in the center, and there are some threats. Pawn takes c3 now as a threat, unleashing the black queen. The white d3 pawn is a backward pawn. It's a big, big target in the near future. But you have closed off, you've kind of cut the board in half with this decision as Vincent Keimer. Now, if white is able to just lock down the center or kind of at least maintain it, then white's attentions will switch towards the king side. And it's going to be harder to fight. Having the option, you talk about pawn breaks, Robert, from time to time, and having the option to open things up can be a godsend if you're on the defensive. Now it's going to be a locked structure for a long time and totally different nature of play. So confident move by Vincent, but a bit of risk attached. That's how I see this last move.
I like how you explained it, cutting the board in half, because when we look at pawn chains, where are the pawn chains? b7 and a6, that's a pawn chain. It's not what I'm going to highlight in this position, but that is what a pawn chain is, just connected pawns. So for those of you at home who want to learn about pawn chains, you tend to operate in the direction of your pawn chain. White has a pawn chain towards the king side. White would like to get a knight to f5. Black has a pawn chain towards the queen side. We may see black further expand with moves like b5 in the future. And as David noted, the d3 pawn is a bit tender in white's camp. So this is what the players are aiming for, is you have to have full board awareness. That's for sure the case. But in this type of position, white would like to make a move like knight h4 and into f5, and white would be especially pleased if this bishop leaves the board, because then the knight can sink his teeth into f5 without worrying about being captured. So right now, Levon is on the clock. David, maybe this is a good moment for us as he retreats his bishop, just to zoom out to our bird's eye view and see what's happening in Division 3.
Robert, we're so in sync. You stole the words right out of my mouth. I've just been peering over at the other game, which is just heating up this moment. And very different nature again. We have really contrasting finals today in Division 2 and 3. Wow, Grishuk just widening his eyes there. He's currently, as black, down a pawn, but the queens are off, and look at the white king in the center of the board. Serrana's king feeling the heat here. Not an entirely happy piece, but being up a pawn, he can even grab another pawn on e5. This one's really imbalanced. For a queenless middle game, this is one of the wilder variety. So much going on there, so much to unpack, Robert, and the evaluation bar is slightly on white's side. I'm also seeing the clock again. Very different nature of position compared to the previous game, but still, Grishuk down 4 minutes already.
Why don't we dive in a little bit? Because Grishuk, he's inching closer to his laptop camera, and the last move we played e5, at first, not receiving a question mark, but as the engine gets a little bit deeper in thought, it figures out that was not the best move. But I'm being honest, I'm going to open up what the best move is for white. David, g4. And I think that does make sense. Sometimes when we push flank pawns, it's like, what are you doing? My king is unsafe in the center. This king is not actually unsafe here. Yes, black has a rook in line with it, but you don't have a follow-up. You don't have too many pieces attacking it. So a move like g4, just to claim further space, the e5 pawn can be captured in the near future, and e4 was the second best move, slightly lower in value, but around the same. This makes perfect sense to me, David, and you're a hungry guy. You like pawns. Do you like that Serrana has just snacked on a second pawn, so at worst case scenario, he'll be a pawn to the good?
Gimme. It's 3 pawns here. Knight takes e5. And yes, Grishuk can win one back, but as long as you have a material advantage, there we go. He is down to 1 pawn now, but you can kind of bully the opponent with the threat of exchanges. And Robert, we mentioned the white king. It should be safe, but still some questions to answer. If he can answer the question of where to put the white king. If he does find a safe haven, a refuge for it, then he should win this game, Sarana. But for now, I do see compensation. If black's other rook, black's knight, the dormant pieces on the queen side, if they're able to get into the game, then all of black's army will be playing. Right now, a retreat from Sarana. He's just trying to consolidate and gain time against black's bishop. The bishop is likely going to move, or it could be defended by black's knight. But either way, yeah, I think Sarana, due to the fact some central squares are closed, not all the lines are open, I think he's going to be enjoying this. We've talked about Sarana in the past, Robert. We covered him last year in Division 1, as you mentioned. And with white, he's a totally different animal. It's like, with white, he's just unstoppable. With black, he still has off days, as we saw earlier. But this is where Grishuk will need to kind of earn his keep. He needs to just hold Sarana, the piranha, at bay in this game.
You see in this game here, he's up a pawn. His king may seem like it's in some trouble, but the engine backs his play up. So Alexis Sarana with the white pieces, one of the best players in the world. Alexis Sarana with the black pieces, as we saw in game 1, that is where he has struggled. So why don't we leave these two to it, as Alexander Grishuk up a point in the match, but down a point. So we'll leave him to his tough defensive tasks. On the left-hand side of our screen, David, look what we see on that board between Levon and Vincent. I believe that it was a temporary piece sacrifice from Vincent just to regain it back with a little baby fork.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to jump in there, Robert, and maybe do a bit of an action replay. It was like New Year's Eve, just a small fireworks display suddenly from Vincent Keimer here. White had retreated a knight to e2, but look at the traffic jam of white's pieces, and this allowed knight takes e4, as you mentioned. That baby little kind of firework display, little sacrifice here, and a very common pattern motif for anyone who plays these king's pawn openings. Now, the knight had to be recaptured, double exclamation mark, because it was a sacrifice, but a double attack now, a fork, and material immediately regained. And if we catch up with the game, it just looks like a normal position. It's as if nothing happened, but there was that moment of drama, Robert. Really, really aware from Vincent, but it cost him a lot of time. Look at the disparity, 6 minutes against 3. Yes, it looks equal. Yes, it looks very symmetrical, but I think Levon's going to be happy with how this game's progressing.
And for Levon, you count your small pluses. I think the lead on the clock, that's quite significant. But the small pluses I'm talking about is look at this pawn on c3 and look at this knight on c6. This pawn takes away the forward progress from the knight. For those of you who have not heard me say it a million times, I'll go 1,000,001. A pawn 3 squares away from a knight dominates that knight because it takes away its forward leaps. So that's the good news for white. And I love that move, David. Bishop d5. Trade on your own terms. If black the knight and remove.
Getting scary. He gave up a pawn because if that white is going to dominate proceedings, do you go dynamic? Do you kind of just go back and defend? Going to be enjoying this, and only 2 minutes for success. Just in recent times with Vincent saw this one coming. He defends with queen to d6, but this is clumsy as well. The black queen is going to get hit by one white rook in the near future. And if Levon wants to be greedy now, he can indeed capture that black knight and win the e5 pawn. So he's actually support for choice, Levon. He'll slow down at this moment. I'm wondering whether you can just build, keep the tension, rook a to d1. There's some tactics to calculate there. It's just about whether you cash in early and take a minimal advantage, a pawn up, but black would have the bishop pair, or whether you really try and maximize, pawn to b4 instead. Threat after threat here, Robert.
I like it. He is playing with force. He doesn't want to just sit and passively say, I have a slight advantage, let me try to milk that. He is saying, I'm actually creating a weakness on the queen side. White will try to play a4 in the near future after fixing the b pawn. So, David, this is a quite strong play. Like when we talk about the principles of a position, the knight on c6 can't go anywhere. This pawn makes sure that the black pawn on b5 can't go, and then a4. I'm not sure you can get away with it yet. Maybe you flick in bishop takes e6, but then a4 happens, and black is on the back foot.
Really classy there, Levon Aronian. A lot of us wouldn't have been able to resist the gift, the treat of a free pawn, but instead he's just going to have a solid positional advantage. You called it. Bishop takes bishop, pawn to a4. This is why the Italian, the Spanish, they're always slightly better for white long term. It's never much, but it's always a bit uncomfortable for black. It's because of that dynamic with the black knight on c6, misplaced. And here we go, chipping away at black's queenside structure there. Really classy play, 3 full minutes up. And look at the accuracy, Levon flexing there, 98%, Robert. And it's just looks like a really pleasant position. Turning it into something more tangible, that's the next step. Do you think he's going to win this game? Do you think he's going to be able to back up his strong play, his energetic play so far?
The speed, that's really what's sticking out to me. And the fact that he's pre-moving. Levon Aronian doesn't really play all that much bullet. He's participated in bullet chess championships in the past, but he is showing that he can get down and dirty. He can pre-move. He can make sure that he has more time on his clock than his opponent. And the rerouting of that knight, that seems smart. I kept talking about how the knight on c6, it was stuck in place. Perhaps there are greener pastures on a square like f4. But I do think that Levon has very good winning chances just because he's slightly more active right now. And the clock, I know a minute 30 seconds for these elite grandmasters, that is really a ton of time to them. But sometimes you start fretting, you get nervous, and you make mistakes, David.
Yeah, definitely. Unless your name's Alexander Grishuk and you're kind of born with 1 minute on your clock. But Vincent, he'll be feeling the heat, but I think this trade of bishops, he'll be also breathing a little sigh of relief that the knight is off that horrible square on c6. And maybe if we zoom out of this temporarily, just while Levon invests a bit of time, he's still 2.5 minutes up. And the other game still looks very chaotic. Serrana with 5.5 minutes, Grishuk with 1.5 minutes, and big threats on the board. White's knights are just lined up. They're attacked right now. What do you make of this, Robert? Again, it's kind of this clock disparity on both boards, and very different nature of both finals right now.
I'm looking at the board on the right between Alexander Grishuk and Alexei Serrana. I mean, Grishuk is down a pawn, but his pieces are active. But the look on his face, he does not look like a man who is happy about his position. He's curiously trying to work through some tactics. Hopefully they go in his favor, but he is down a pawn. So I don't think he truly believes in his chances. And wow, Serrana made a great move, by the way, forcing off some of the material. So Levon on the left-hand side, he has the advantage on the clock with white. Alexei on the right-hand side, very much the same. David, who would you say has the better chances to hold between Vincent Keimer, who objectively is not much worse, but is in some time trouble, and Alexander Grishuk, who the engine says is worse, but he has all this activity?
I think I agree with the evaluation bar on, at least in this regard. At least Vincent Keimer isn't material down. White's advantage is about the board. Is kind of a little bit more activity there, but also on the clock. At least Serrana has something to work with, has something to suffer for. He has a clear pawn to the good. And often if you give the top players kind of a theoretical advantage, something a bit vague, they'd rather cash in and turn it into something they can cling onto, something concrete. So I'm going to say that Serrana is happier than Aronian. But then again, Vincent's clock just... every time we go away, seems to tick faster than ever. 30 seconds suddenly, and White's rook has infiltrated on the 7th rank. Both of these games we should mention could go in any direction, all 3 results possible. It's not the type of position where kind of you're suffering and it could only be a draw. Still, Robert, which one do we dive back deeper into? Grishuk's jumping in with his knights, the black knights on the right board, so tricky, springing forward. Meanwhile, Levon against Vincent, it's dramatic on the clock. Wow. Rook's on the 7th rank, 7th heaven. Robert, I think we need to jump in there with Levon Aronian.
Let's dive back into our Division 2 title match. It's the grand finals. Vincent Keimer, he has 2 lives to Levon Aronian's 1. That's in this double elimination format. And look at Levon go. He is playing for the clock as much, if not more so, than he is playing on the board H4. Not for the score, but just to kick this knight out of the G6. And look at Vincent making these small mistakes, David. White's rooks are too active here, and loose pieces may drop off.
I might have to revise my opinion. A moment ago, I said at least there's nothing tangible here for Levon Aronian. Vincent can maybe consolidate with some exchanges, but he might just go down a pawn. The e5 pawn is surely doomed over the next few turns. He's desperately trying to trade off pieces. Like you said, activity over everything here. And yeah, it's now time for that calculation phase. Shout out to Kanti for us right now. H5. Wow. H5 and we're live. Surely that wins a pawn. The blue arrow appears, Robert. Only move knight to f4. I was going to ask. Of course he finds it, Vincent Keimer.
But he found the first step. What's next? Does his knight have to continue going in white's territory? 2 seconds. He barely gets his move off. He retreats. But David, now he is down a pawn, and white's attack can rage on with rook to f5. Slide that rook out of there. Vacate the e5 square for the knight. I just don't believe in black's king safety, nor do I believe in his clock.
5 would be a really classy move. It's just a illusion, white's king being weak here. Yes, there's going to be a check on the back rank, but white's king has a nice, safe square to hide on h2. I don't think you have to sweat too much about keeping your king on that post. So I'm expecting rook to f5 as well. Rook to a1 would be another candidate move if you really want to shore up your defenses. But 4 seconds, oof, yeah, Vincent, he's got to go into hustle mode. He's got to try and swindle Levon here, but not easy when you have no time to think suddenly. His heart is going to be racing so fast right now. He knows that he's up against it. Levon, I think that this is his chance. If he wants to kind of get that grand final reset, he needs to strike in this game.
And for Vincent, you know he's like squeezing the mouse right now. Is he going to go now? Is he going to go now? You're just waiting to see what Levon plays and when he does it, because rook a1 is a perfectly good move. Rook f5, the same. Both of these are normal moves that help white out. King h2 is a third move that comes to mind. You may walk into a pin, but the check on the first rank is no longer available. So for Vincent, this is a stressful situation. David, I don't envy him, but Levon, he's getting down to 40 seconds himself.
Those bullet skills, Levon there on the camera. I think for the first time in this match, we see him getting a bit twitchy. And what's he going to play? He needs to move 30 seconds. Oof, it's a pure bullet. And that would be such a shame for Levon, who's had for such a long time. He's got to move. A minute and a half on this move. The urgency of the situation.
I was looking at his camera. Recognized that he was one of rook a1. 3, and Vincent doesn't take it because b4.
The advantage is board. White's piece is a bit clumsy because he's below Vincent on the clock.
Rook f5, knight e5. So he gave up a pawn to easy, frankly, for either side to play.
Seconds. Vincent, oof, he's making moves with. At least black's got his defenses. Ooh, he dropped a pawn.
2 pawns at minimum, but look at Levon first, and now we can scoop up a second.
Auto move, pre-move there. This one, if you're Levon Aronian, he's setting up on the 7th rank, but now a hit on the white rook and the knight. We're seeing more numbers.
He's giving up his knight, but it actually is justified by the engine. What a sacrifice. What awareness from Levon to realize this knight is pinned, and it's the black king that's in danger. But suddenly, David, the
move. White has so many pawns, so many checkmating ideas, and he just trades off. But he's not going to win the H-pawn. Levon Aronian, it's the might of pawns against the powerful black knight. Who's going to succeed here? It's still a lottery, still all 3 results on the table. Levon Aronian, I think it's easier to play with pawns here, Robert. You can just push. One-track mind. I think it's easier to play white's position.
I don't even know what black is supposed to do. You could give me a day to figure this out and I wouldn't know, because the black knight seems stuck. The white pieces just shuffle about, and at some point there will be pawn pushes, but don't rush that. I think that's the key here for Levon, is he can't push his pawn legally at the moment, and you don't want to push g5 too soon because you don't want to split your remaining pawn. So not actually easy to end this game.
He walks in with the white king. Be careful, the white king has no squares, so don't get checkmated. But the might of the pawns. If he pushes the right pawn, chooses the right moment, he should be winning. He's calculating whether he can play pawn to e6 right now. This is kind of weird X-ray vision, almost a pin from the white rook to that knight. But Vincent, 3 seconds. He's got a gamble here. He takes a pawn and the white king moves. Classy touch from Levon. He's now 2 pawns up. He's going to win this endgame.
And king e8 was necessary from Levon. So he had this all worked out. A rook g6 check. Whew. This is close because the black pawn is also a passer, but white queen's first with check. David, that was instructive finish.
Incredible finish. Speed, accuracy from Levon Aronian in the endgame. He lost control for a moment, but as soon as he regained that control, he wrapped it up nicely, and Vincent logs off. Let's go to the Division 3 final, where we see a checkmating pattern, Robert.
Oh my goodness! I think you were going to say what I was going to say. It's an endgame. It's similar, but no, it's checkmate on the spot. This black king can go nowhere, David. It looked like a hopeless position regardless, but that ends the game without question.
Wow. Yeah. Much symmetry there. 2 rook endgames, and ultimately 2 wins for the player with the white pieces. Just incredible play there. And Vrishuk pegged back after taking the first game. He forced a defeat, Robert.
Both of these matches have been so close. And we do have one player in the lead. It's Levon Aronian up 1.5 against Vincent Keimer in Division 2. With that spot in the top division, $15,000 on the line. It's Levon Aronian, who is on his last life, but is trying to catch up to Keimer. And in Division 3, Alexei Sarana wins Game 2.
Wow. Levon Aronian showing his class, his quality, but Sarana, we talked about it, with the white pieces. He's almost unplayable, truly world-class with his openings. I wanted to point out his endgame technique, also flawless here. With white, he has an extra pawn. White's e-pawn is spare here. He has a 3-on-2 advantage on the king side, but the technique with which he won this game, wrapped it up within a few moves, was just impressive. First, what to do, how to make progress. Activate the white king. It already looks great, but there's a clear path towards the black queenside pawns. He started walking in this direction. The path was cut off temporarily with rook to c3, but now the white kingside pawns can act as a distraction. Pawn to f5, a really nice touch. Calculating correctly that after a trade of pawns, rook to g3 looks like it's winning one of these pawns, but no, the door is shut, a check, forcing the black king back to the back rank, and now king to c6, a really lost position anyway. White's intention was not to go pawn hunting. White simply stepped forward, king to c7, and checkmate is inevitable next move. A mating net in a rook endgame, a really rare sight, but it did bring Sarana an important win.
What an ending that was, because so many people say, oh, it's winning regardless. But in time scrambles, if you don't end the game on the spot, that's how you actually give away half points or even full points. So what awareness from Alexei Sarana. He was up upon the start. At the end, it was even by material, but checkmate, that is the game ender. So that was a nice comeback victory for Sarana.
Beautiful mating net. And talking of the internet, Opera and Chess.com have collaborated on the internet browser for chess enthusiasts. The world's first chess browser has integrated chess right into the sidebar, so you're only ever one click away from a quick work. You can even pin the sidebar panel watching or browsing with one eye on the board. This is available for Windows, Mac, chess browser in the chat now to download Opera. That's right.
Need an intermission, we will join them, as will you in the audience, but don't go anywhere, because when we return, it's games 3 and 4 of these title matches in Division 2 and 3 of the Chessable Masters. This is 2023 Champions Chess Tour. We'll be right back.
I used to work at the bank from 7 to 6. I was a stock market analyst. I always had an interest in this, working under time pressure. And at that time, I had a friend. It was Christoph Sielecki, who was also working at the bank. During our lunch times, we often walked through the park and played chess as well. I thought one time,
how many times have I felt this good? Let me count for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How many times have I felt this good?
to it as well.
Yeah, and it all started from there. At the time, I found YouTube, which was pretty new in 2011. And I uploaded my first video on my Chess Explained channel. And it was funny because I sent Michael the video links so that he could watch, and all of a sudden dozens of people. I got plenty of people contacting me about lessons, and then I started teaching. Yeah, so the channel was really kind of the beginning of thinking about chess as a career. And I quickly had a full schedule, like basically teaching 30 hours a week. Chess is such a beautiful and kind of multifaceted game. You find something new every day. In chess openings in particular, which is my forte, I'm thrilled to find new ideas, present them to the audience, and help them to play a better and entertaining chess.
Totally fascinating if you talk with Christoph about chess in general, but also especially openings. He's like a machine, a fountain of knowledge.
I was always fascinated by the opening phase of the game because I think due to this fixed starting position, you have something very, it's very explorable. You have a very constant thing that you can look at. Yeah, I think my total highlight, Magnus' great ability in end games, in middle games, planning like all his best games and ideas. And I wrote that together with Peter Heine. It was a great experience. We were on plenty of Zoom calls. That was in the height of the pandemic. It's pretty wild. At the end, Magnus recorded the whole thing, based on my script, which was fascinating. A real great experience to get in touch with like the highest level of chess, which was completely unimaginable before, and never thought that something like that could happen. Yeah, it's just a wild journey in a way. Uploading a video in July 2011, and from going there to cooperation with Cam, Magnus, and then finally last year in 2022 I won this Author of the Year for Chessable after having successful courses in the past couple of years. It was just like impossible to imagine when I just started doing like a single video for my friend basically, and
A year ago, Levon Aronian did not king is on the wall, and Levon wants to prove that he is indeed king of Division 2.
It feels like Levon Aronian woke up on the right side of bed today. He chose violence. He got that win in a long, scrappy end game there. And already a better start for him than that match, that previous match you mentioned against Vincent. It feels like he's got this under control. He's brimming with confidence. And nice to see, as I think Kasparov said, a happy, confident Levon in form makes the whole chess world better. So Vincent has a real fight on his hands if he wants to win Division 2 and get that coveted place in the top division next time.
Levon is an incredible player. At his peak, he was the number 2 rated player in the world. He's the 4th highest rated player in history. And he's been through a lot in his personal life. He's also exchanged federations from Armenia to the United States, but he is a national hero in his home country. I mean, seriously, everybody knows him. He's a household name, and he led.
Really popular as a person, as a player, and maybe one player who's not enjoying Levon's company right now is Vincent Keimer, who needs to win. And wow, Robert, pawn to f4? Played chess for a long time. I've never seen that one.
It makes sense. He is just trying to take control of the center and prevent Black from thinking about e5. Does it actually stop e5? Does it transpose to some kind of 4 pawns King's Indian? David, I'm equally confused here. E5 does not look easy to play, and it's Levon who has less time out of the opening for a change.
Wow, yeah, the opening, the white pieces actually we've seen in both finals, Division 2 and 3 today. It's been essential, starting strong with white, landing the first surprise, playing on the front foot, attacking if possible. And Vincent, this isn't necessarily an aggressive move, it's just to control. It's very positionally, strategically sound. And Levon Aronian, he's forced to go out on a limb, literally. The Black Light now, firstly, impressed by Vincent's opening idea. I nearly never see him kind of go this risky this early, but I'm also impressed that Levon reacted so quickly to this surprise. Maybe I need to do my research about whether this is a known idea, but White's taking all the space, Robert. It's just a clash of ideals here. White's got the space, but Black's got some hidden dynamism and some holes in the White camp to look at potentially later.
This e3 square, that's one of those holes, and it can transform into a Maroczy bind structure, where if White pushes a pawn to e4, we have 1 pawn on c4, 1 pawn on e4, stopping Black from pushing pawns forward. So that's one of the major ideas in these types of positions. I don't know how quickly Vincent will want to shut down his own bishop on the light squares, which looks like a phenomenal piece, but Levon, he hasn't moved yet. So David, the holes in the position that you're talking about, e3, I was about to say, is knight g4 possible? He answers yes.
Middle, look at the 2 black knights. They're kind of threats here and there. Off, Vincent will feel comfortable. So Levon investing time now. He has to justify these knight jumps. Drawing the extra squares, the space. Trading off a pawn in the center, trying to lengthen. But I don't really see it. And in my opinion, at least, understand the 3rd time the knight has moved and back to a square it sat on just a few moves earlier. Surely Vincent now is able to consolidate and enjoy the space he stole.
Why not steal more space? Pushing the pawn to d5, that looks pleasant to my eyes. There is a threat directly on this pawn on d4. All of Black's pieces staring there. And as you said, David, this knight, it went to c6 first, out to a5, back to c6. The knight on g4, it went up to f6 and out to g4. And how was White dealt with that? When the knight came out to g4, White simply slid the queen up. When the knight went to a5, White created a connect 4, a pawn chain. So the dynamism that Black is playing for, David, I'm not sold on it just yet, because knight takes f3, E takes f3 as a response, doubling your own pawns. That looks attractive to me to gain control over open files. You can also, of course, take back with the bishop. So, David, I'm not feeling the loss of time from Levon Aronian's perspective.
I think he's playing for tricks here, understandably, but yeah, one track mind on tricks. Often you forget these strategic factors. You forget about kind of the bigger picture. Tempo in chess is so important. I just want to point out one trick. Don't play pawn to e3 here, trying to kick out this black knight from the center. Pawn to e3 would backfire badly after knight takes e3, and suddenly the trickery of the black knights comes to the fore. Queen takes knight allows a family fork, a royal fork here, hitting the king, queen, rook in the corner, and black. So Vincent, of course, he'll spot this. He'll avoid this pitfall. But yeah, why not castle the white king? As you said, it's not a threat from black to trade off knights if white allows it on his own terms. I feel that Vincent, he's still got a bunch of time on the clock. He's reacted so well to Levon's plans and tricks here. And yeah, I'm just loving the white pawn chain. You know me, Robert, my favorite game, Connect 4. White has got that on the queen side. You're highlighting it before I even finished. And yeah, this is a beautiful position for Vincent.
We've done enough coverage together for me to know exactly where you're heading, and this pawn chain is heading towards the black king side. You would like to continue pushing pawns up the board at some moment to gain some additional space, and he has in fact castled. The bishop goes to d7. So, David, I think in this one, the status quo, it's being maintained at the moment, and white seems to be more harmonious, and that's why I would prefer Vincent's position. Look at these knight moves. One knight went to the rim, the second knight on the rim. I just feel like white has done a series of natural choices, and black is trying to find activity wherever he can.
Trying, but so far failing, Levon Aronian, and now two obvious moves come to mind, either pawn to e4 or pawn to g4. Keep pushing. Be consistent. Look at that beautiful pawn chain that white has established all over the board, gaining space in the center, holding everything together. Still a long, long time before we see black finding counterplay. So a great start for Vincent in his quest to strike back and equalize this match at least. Maybe we zoom out temporarily, Robert. I think that question mark, by the way, a bit harsh. It looked like a very nice move for white. But let's check out what's happening in the Division 3 final.
Let's check it out, because Alexei Sarana, Alexander Grishuk, they're knotted up at one game apiece. So as Vincent Keimer continues to claim space on the left-hand side of our screens, look at the right-hand side of our screens. Alexei has the black pieces. We talked about how he struggled when he doesn't have first move advantage. And Alexander Grishuk, he has 6 minutes to his opponent's 9+. This is on the right-hand side of our screens, David. Not at all shocking that Grishuk is down on time.
We'll repeat that a lot today, Robert, and it is a really important factor, of course, especially in rapid chess. Grishuk's clock handling, for himself, it's stressful. For his opponents, it's it just has this temptation to play on time. It's one of the most important factors in the position, but I've got to say, I like white's chances on that board. We talk about pawn chains. White is the one with the pawn break. White can chip away at the black center, and white has kind of more centralized pawns here. I'm looking at white switching the attention over to the queen side. There we go. Grishuk on the right board pushes a pawn forward to c4, like dynamite. And the black king also a bit airy. So I think a good start to the game by Grishuk. Of course, it's still roughly in the balance, but yeah, as long as he can keep playing relatively quickly, I like his chances. How about you?
I've listened to you. I like his chances as well, but I have to be honest, my eyes are back on the Keimer Aronian position, because Levon Aronian, he took game 2 in a time scramble. If we dive right back into the position between Keimer and Aronian, look at this. I mean, what has black done in the last few turns? I think his moves were knight back to h6, pawn to a6, king to h8. Like, he's doing a whole lot of nothing. And after this latest move, b5, look at how high the evaluation bar is, David. It's through the roof. And why can't, explain to me, white just steal a pawn in the center?
I'm struggling to see a reason not to get greedy here. Why not? Grab material while you can. I mean, look at the space. We talk about space as kind of just a general factor. It's about which squares you control. Here, it's very kind of aesthetically obvious what white has done. White just has infiltrated the enemy camp. Normally, your battle lines, it's your 4 kind of ranks are your territory. The opponent's 4 are theirs, and white has stepped across those boundaries. That black knight on h6 is terrible. And look at this classy move from Vincent. He wants to take that pawn with his bishop, and black cannot take twice on the e5 square, because look at that black knight on h6. It's hanging in a lot of variations. The white queen has its eyes over in that direction. I'm going to say it. He's crushing Levon in this game, and it's rare to see such a one-sided position, Robert. Looks like something that Vincent might get in a simultaneous display, I've got to say.
This is rare to see Levon Aronian playing with no space. He's the dynamic player. He loves playing adventurous chess, but whatever adventure this one was, he never wants to repeat it because he has no space. White is just continuing to launch an assault against the black king side. d4 is dropping, so white may just go up because you can't take a see how black continues here, maybe, but that's a 1-move threat that rook to c1. This looks with much of anything for black.
I mean, I want to see hope, Robert. I don't. I just think that black is busted at this early stage. I've got to say, I'm impressed that Levon still got his poker face inside. He must be bubbling, just thinking all that hard work to get that win with white in the previous game. Kind of that beautiful endgame technique, and it's all been, well, thrown away in a difficult opening here. He was hopping around with the knights, and that's why, I guess, for the newer players with us, we say don't move the same piece twice in the opening until the rest of your army is developed, at least. And he moved his queenside knight, what was it, 4 or 5 times, only to see it get traded off. The kingside knight has hopped around the board as well, gone on a journey just to sit passively on the edge of the board here. I mean, we can philosophize all we want, but ultimately black is struggling. Black's going to be a pawn down, and just barely possible to find a move. Look at this, back on his starting square, Robert.
This has been a really unfortunate game for Levon, who is an exceptional player. I think he might be aiming for some kind of f-pawn push to gain a little bit of breathing room, but as soon as you touch your f-pawn, that gives the white pawn another square to jump to, and this knight can go into g5 anyway. I just don't see any hope. And for those of you at home who are looking at this saying, why is it so clear? It's just one extra pawn. It's that even in this position, white probably could almost give up a piece and still have the advantage because of the complete control of the board. I do like Levon's move, David. I think f5 was a good choice. I am responding with e6. I think it's important to keep pressing forward, go after the black king in the corner, and expose this dark square diagonal.
Vincent now can start calculating. He still has 5 minutes. He knows he has a winning position, but like you said, this is why Levon is such a classy player. He's so energetic, even in desperate situations like this. We've all been there. We've all had opening disasters. I've had my fair share, I must admit. But he's fighting back now. f5, it was necessary, and he's going to go down fighting no matter what. So, earlier, killing off these top players, putting the ball in the back of the net, finishing the game is not going to be easy. I like your e6, Robert. If white wants to consolidate, then I was going to say, might retreat his knight to f2 just to kind of keep the beautiful white pawn structure intact, but he's closing in for the kill. The bar drops slightly, but still looks phenomenal. I think your e6 idea is up his sleeve. It's coming next.
It's unstoppable. There's nothing that black can do. You can put your own pawn on e6, and white simply takes it. So now h6 played, it's time. Opening up the h file may further hurt the black king. H takes g5. I'm wondering if I even have to take your bishop that's hanging on d7. This is how cramped, how poor black's position is. I mean, David, this is a type of game we don't see from Levon very often, but I think we have to give the credit to Vincent. He was able to capitalize where so many have not over the years.
And I'm already tracing it back to the opening. And this isn't Levon necessarily getting outplayed. It's just him not surviving the opening stage. And that f4 move early on. If that isn't already known, then that's going to become trendy. That's how much Vincent wants to win this game, how much respect he has for Levon Aronian. He's showing off kind of rare opening ideas. He's not saving it for more important tournaments. This is the game he wants to win. And just below the boards there, we see Vincent, 94% accuracy, even in what has been a really complicated battle. Levon, it's not shabby, 85%, but ultimately it's just one or two mistakes kind of gave him an uphill struggle from the off. And now Vincent's debating whether to regain the piece he's just sacrificed by taking on d7, or whether to just keep the attack going, to go for the Black King. Still some work to be done, but an abundance of choice, and they all look winning, Robert. It looks like he's dragging the Black King out into the open now before he moves in for the kill.
And look at this. He doesn't even take the bishop. So white now is down a knight for 2 pawns. But I said it in the previous game, and I'll say it again. A pawn 3 squares away from a knight dominates that knight. That knight cannot get out. Rook f4, pawn takes f5, rook coming to h4. This king is also getting checkmated. So you save some extra material for black. As Yasser Serwan likes to say, if you're going to what is it? If you're going to die, at least you do so on a full stomach, and this is exactly what's happening here.
I love that saying, I've got to admit, the pawn grabber's motto. But ultimately, yeah, it was just visualization. The white rook anywhere on the h file, if it lands, will be checkmate, and I think that's how this game is going to end. Levon, we see him on the camera there, just he looks despondent. He looks like he knows the inevitable. The axe is about to fall on that Black King. And this one, it's pretty much decided. Vincent, powerful play. Just, I think he becomes the favourite yet again for this Division 2 final to book his place in the top division next time. Just the manner of this defeat, Robert, psychologically, it's going to be hard for Levon to recover.
And for Vincent, I mean, he sort of is playing with house money in a way, because if he loses even this game and Levon takes the match, well, there's a second match that will be played with 2 games rather than 4, but that's, there's a comfort zone for Vincent. And well, there's no comfort zone for the Black King here, because there are all sorts of checkmating nets, but maybe the Black King will slide out to g6, David. That's Levon's last hope, that there isn't immediately a checkmate. It's not like there's a mate in 3 by force. And so he is going to try to bring his king out and survive. David, we've seen crazier things happen.
We have. Crazier things have happened multiple times on the Champions Chess Tour. This rapid format lays claim to these crazy things, and we're surprised by that one, Robert. Just so calm, so cool from Vincent. Just slides his king into the corner. Is that sadism, or is that just genius?
I think it's a smart decision. I mean, the evaluation didn't change at all, and he didn't want to allow a queen trade on the diagonal or a check. But David, I would not have been able to resist rook h4 followed by queen h8 and just surrounding the Black King.
I agree. Why hesitate when it looked like there was a very direct path? It's just good practical. So good at realizing kind of when to take kind of at his own leisure. It's probably the only time he'll get such a one-sided Levon Aronian. So 1 minute. It's a matter of time. Not much to do. Unfortunately, you can't. The Black Queen's too far away. Asleep. Looks like Fischer random chess, Robert. The black pieces in the back rank.
Well, Levon is getting ready for the freestyle GOAT challenge, and if I'm not mistaken, Vincent is playing there as well. So, yeah, Fischer random, and that doesn't start just yet. This is chess, and this Black King is getting checkmated. I don't see a way out for it. Some of the ideas are quite simple, giving a check, maybe bringing this bishop into the attack if you need an extra piece, but the Black King, he has no defenders, and Levon, he's got no time. Under 30 seconds, maybe he won't even play a next move.
We'll await his next move, but then we will kind of zoom out and see how the other game is developing. Of course, Alexander Grishrek's in time pressure over there. I think that would be breaking news to anyone, not a surprise in the slightest. In the meantime, Levon does throw out another move. He throws his knight to f6, where it will likely just get chopped off the board, but at least his king now has a safe square to hide on g7. He cuts across the white queen's diagonal, stops any entry from that white queen. Vincent, what do you think is the smoothest, the cleanest kill here? You always want to cut out the opponent's counterplay if possible.
Well, that's why I'm so impressed by this game. It's not just that f4 move in the opening. It's the fact that I would be taking a knight on f6 and saying, at minimum, I'm up a pawn, and I'm probably going to checkmate your king anyway, but he is thinking. So for all of you out there who are watching this, do what Vincent is doing. If you have enough time, you want to calculate so you can finish the game on the spot in the near future versus extending it and giving your opponent some chances. So I mean, seriously great from Vincent Keimer. Now it's a matter of taking this knight, throwing the rook h4 check first. I guess actually rook h4, there's knight h5 all of a sudden, and even though white is still objectively winning, you have more to prove.
Yeah, actually, that one slipped my radar. And knight to h5, yeah, as soon as you see that that might be a defensive resource, you just take the knight back, and you're actually still up material and you're attacking with white. But of course, it's Vincent. He doesn't want to. He now takes the knight after giving up his rook. And Robert, are we going to see a checkmate? The white rook is going to deliver the killer blow.
And look at this, bishop e4. That's why the king went to h1 all those turns ago. Rook g1 is checkmate on the next move. And so black may be forced to take, but you're allowing the white queen to recapture with check, and then the queen and rook will do some form of ladder checkmate. Wow, bishop e4, the killer blow.
Beautiful, beautiful play. And Levon Aronian, with 2 seconds left, finds queen to c5, trying to give up the queen for a rook on g1, but queen g4. Oof, look at this. It's forced mate. You can do anything here. You can give another check. You can take this bishop, and checkmate is coming. Levon throwing his queen away. Did he lose on time? No. Vincent, though, wins the game. Oh, but what a game. So beautiful.
What a game from Vincent Keimer. It was one-sided as it gets, and we still have another game going in Division 3. But Vincent Keimer, he evened up the score, and Alexander Grishuk, he's about to score. I saw the evaluation bar go through the roof. And the Black King in this game too, David. What is going on in the third game of the match? The players of the Black Pieces do not want to protect their king.
Again, we talk about the symmetry, these clashes in the Division 2 and 3 finals. It's as if lightning is striking twice, 3 times. It's all about the white pieces. Simply checkmate. Again, the black queen divorced from her king. This is a recurring pattern. Don't put your queen that far away. Don't get trigger happy and start grabbing pawns when you're about to get checkmated. His house is collapsing here, Serrana. There's nothing to do. We've jumped in at a moment where he is likely just about to get checkmated or resign. The only reason he'll play on Robert here is because of the clock, but 19 seconds for Grishuk. That is an eternity by his standards.
And there's that 2-second increment, so they can rebuild their clock as they get down into serious time trouble. Queen takes f6 or rook takes f6 doesn't matter too much in terms of the evaluation. It's going to lead to a checkmate. So there isn't anything that black can do. David, you're right. If this queen could jump through the knight to e6, we'd be talking about a real game. Black would have great chances to hold on, but that queen, it's offside. It probably snagged on a pawn over here. Wasn't wise when your king has no defenders.
Saw Serrana suffering on the camera there, didn't look happy at all, grimacing, wondering how to even keep this game alive. Maybe he'll throw the black knight into e5 just to kind of trade off the white knight, get the black queen back. Ultimately, he's just going to try a few more tricks to try and cling on, at least make Grishuk work for his win. But there's nothing to do, and another grimace. He knows he's losing, and now he's not even up much on the clock. This one, Grishuk, we mentioned it earlier, he's going for the central strategy, and Black King retreats. He closes in for the kill here. How to finish? 15 seconds. See him nervously looking away at the clock occasionally. He's got to move. Queen to e6. Really nice one there, Robert. Multiple threats. Surely the black position now is just collapsing.
But look at Serrana. He's holding everything together. Rook takes f7 check by Grishuk. Ends the game there. So Serrana put up some stubborn defense, and Grishuk, he saw
this is has brought his A game. He's won Serrana, and yes, Serrana. At the moment, the pressure is on wants to maintain his 2 lives in the fight to recover. He looks really down. When the chips are down, the best players, they always bring their A game.
And Alexander Grishuk in Division 3, not just a super grandmaster at chess, he's also a stellar poker player. So the chips, they are in his hands, and we see Grishuk build a 2-1 lead over Serrana. And in Division 2, it's tied 1.5, 1.5. And Levon Aronian, he jumped to a lead after a nice win in Game 2. He is probably not a happy man, and we see him on camera. No smiles there, David.
No smiles for Levon Aronian. That was a tough game, one to forget. He'll try and put that out of his mind in this next game. He does get white again, and Robert, a big trend we've seen today, the players with the white pieces taking the wins, just starting so strongly from the off.
It's the opposite of the Tata Steel Chess Masters in the classical tournament we saw in Vikings, where Black was winning every game out of the gates, and then finally White was able to catch up. Here, every decisive game has been from the player with the white pieces, and in this matchup between Levon Aronian and Vincent Keimer, that's good news for Levon. He needs to win this match and then win another, and Vincent, he can eliminate Levon. He could end the tournament right here, win $15,000, win a spot in Division 1 in the second leg of the 2024 Champions Chess Tour if he wins this game from the black side.
Big game now for Vincent. As long as he avoids defeat, he'll have a great chance of knocking out Levon Aronian, winning the tournament, or winning the division at least. But still another Italian game. I think this is kind of a sign that I should get some pizza or pasta for dinner tonight. But this Italian brought Levon some success earlier today. Will that pattern be repeated? Vincent looked uncomfortable earlier, Robert, in this opening. Are you surprised to see him repeat and allow Levon to get this type of middle game yet again?
I'm guessing that Vincent looked at this during the break to feel more confident. And well, speaking of breaks, he does break in the center with D5, and then that knight didn't go to G3. So because it was on the F1 square, it goes over to H2. And David, you played the Italian growing up. A knight on G4, that really is going for the score.
All right, a knight on G4, it recurs. It's a known pattern in the Italian game, in the Spanish, and it's often, now it's been chopped off, but it's often in conjunction with an attack. And I'm wondering how White generates this attack against the Black King. Does the White G-pawn step forward? Does White play a move like knight to H4 into that F5 square? There we go. The knife has been let loose now. It's about to land, but first, Vincent plays rook to D8, exclamation point there. Robert, this just must be very, very deep preparation. Aesthetically, White's position looks great, but maybe Vincent's just worked it all out.
It looks like a dream come true from the White side, but that move, rook A8, deserves an exclamation point. You may ask why. Aren't you just lining up your queen and rook against this loose pawn on D3? That absolutely is what you're doing, but you're also ignoring moves like G5. This pawn on H6 is a hook that allows White to enter Black's position and start going for the king. A knight on F5 looks scary, but a knight can't deliver checkmate by itself. So rook A8, a composure from Vincent Keimer, and also fantastic preparation. Now it's Levon who needs to prove that he can gain the upper hand against not just Vincent, but the Silicon friend that he studied this position with.
And psychologically, that is tough. Levon Aronian, in his mind right now, of course, he's trying to calculate moves. He's trying to figure out what is best. He's going to try and look 3-4 steps ahead if he can. But in the back of his mind, as you say, Robert, it's really disconcerting to know that your opponent has studied this in depth. Maybe Vincent spent the whole of last night, the whole of this morning, just kind of studying this opening, figuring out how to survive as Black, how to kind of even pose problems for White. And it's a double-edged sword. If you try to kind of surprise Vincent back, then you know you're not playing the best move. But if you continue playing what you think is the best move, you might be walking further down into that that kind of labyrinth that the computer has set out and explained to Vincent. So really tough situation. For me, this is one of the hardest things with modern chess, Robert. Kind of the psychology involved with opening preparation.
Amazing preparation from Vincent. He was shaky in that second game, which Levant eventually won. Here in game 4, he says, no problems for me. Instead of sitting passively, getting outplayed when my opponent takes control of open lines, I am going to be the first one to the open line. Give me your d3 pawn. And it needs to retreat with moves like bishop c2. You're heading in the wrong direction. So I really like how Vincent has changed his opening from a couple games ago. And Levant is down by going on 2.5, 3 minutes. David, we do not see that often at all.
Vincent is thinking. Vincent clearly... Oh, commentator's curse. I was about to say clearly for the first time on his own, but nope. The knight leaps into d5, attacking White's rook. And it looks like